Imagine for a moment the profound revelation, the almost liberating discovery of learning that a single everyday food, a common staple perhaps already gracing your pantry shelves or nestled in your refrigerator, when understood with a little bit of specific targeted nutritional know-how and utilized strategically as part of your daily regimen, could begin to reawaken and significantly enhance your neuromuscular function. This isn't just about the muscle fibers themselves, but the intricate vital communication system between your brain and your muscles, the very network that translates thought into action. And what if this reawakening could begin to manifest in as little as 12 to 24 hours? This isn't a whimsical, far-fetched dream spun from wishful thinking or anecdotal claims. Instead, it represents the cutting edge of nutritional science, a rapidly evolving and incredibly exciting field that is continuously uncovering the powerful, often surprisingly rapid impact of targeted nutrition on a vast array of physiological processes, including muscle health, nerve signaling, and cellular energy production. We're not just talking about a minor tweak or a marginal improvement here, we're discussing a fundamental paradigm-shifting change in how we approach and understand muscle health and vitality throughout the lifespan. It's a significant move beyond the general, often vague and sometimes unhelpful advice of just eating healthy, towards a more precise, strategic, evidence-based and potent method of fueling our bodies specifically for power, resilience, optimal function and a higher quality of life. Unlocking leg power beyond the gym, beyond the pills, the kitchen solution. Have you ever found yourself questioning the source of true lasting leg strength, especially when confronted with that frustrating creeping slowdown in your movements, a persistent nagging weakness that shadows your daily activities, or an unshakable fatigue that seems to settle deep within your limbs, making even simple tasks feel like monumental efforts? It's a common experience, this subtle erosion of power, often dismissed as an inevitable consequence of passing years. What if I proposed, however, that one of the most potent and accessible pathways to reclaiming the power in your legs, to genuinely turning back the tide on this decline, isn't concealed within the gleaming, intimidating, high-tech machinery of a modern gym, nor is it dependent on mastering a complex, time-consuming and perhaps unsustainable exercise routine? What if it's not even found in the alluring, often expensive promises of the latest miracle pill or exotic supplement that floods the market with claims of rejuvenation? Imagine for a moment the empowering possibility that the fundamental key to revitalizing those absolutely crucial muscles, the very foundation supporting your mobility, your ability to balance confidently, and your cherished hard-won independence, was in fact patiently waiting for you right now, within the familiar, comforting, and entirely accessible confines of your own kitchen. This isn't about dismissing the value of exercise, but about highlighting a foundational, often overlooked, partner in achieving optimal muscle health. By the very next morning, these participants exhibited clearly discernible and statistically significant improvements in markers of muscle protein synthesis, MPS. As you may already know, or as we've touched upon, MPS is the fundamental, intricate biological process your body utilizes to repair damaged muscle tissue, which occurs naturally from daily wear and tear, and more so with exercise, and critically, to build new, stronger and more resilient muscle fibers. It's the very essence of muscle adaptation and growth. But the observed benefits didn't stop there, painting an even more compelling picture of overnight revitalization. The researchers also noted a concurrent and significant boost in mitochondrial activity within the muscle cells of these individuals. Think of mitochondria for a moment as the thousands, even millions of tiny biological power plants, the intricate and indispensable engines residing within each of your cells, including and especially your highly active muscle cells. These remarkable organelles are responsible for generating the vast majority, over 90% of the cellular energy, in the form of a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that drives virtually everything your body does, from basic metabolic functions like breathing and digestion to intense physical exertion like running or lifting, through to the complex processes of cellular recovery, repair, and ultimately the expression of your physical strength and endurance. This finding concerning enhanced mitochondrial function is particularly critical and relevant when we consider the health and performance of your legs. The large, powerful muscle groups of the lower body, such as the quadriceps, hamstrings, and calves, are often the first place we notice the creeping, unwelcome signs of age-related decline. That slight hesitation or increased effort on the stairs, the greater difficulty in rising from a low chair, or the earlier onset of fatigue and heaviness during a walk that was once easily managed. Let's dive headfirst, with an open and inquisitive mind, into a truly eye-opening piece of research, a study that landed with significant impact in the pages of the prestigious Journal of Clinical Nutrition in the year 2023. This journal is renowned internationally for its rigorous peer review process and its publication of evidence-based contributions that genuinely advance our understanding of human metabolism, nutritional biochemistry, and clinical health outcomes. In this meticulously conducted and thoughtfully designed study, a team of scientists observed a cohort of adults over the age of 50. This demographic is particularly relevant because it's often during these years that individuals begin to experience the subtle yet undeniable shifts in muscle function, the first whispers of what could later become more pronounced weakness or fatigue. The researchers made a remarkable and for many a potentially game-changing discovery regarding the impact of timed nutrient intake. When these individuals consumed a specific type of nutrient-rich food in the evening, just before their nighttime rest, a period traditionally viewed as passive but now understood as crucial for repair and regeneration, something truly incredible and importantly measurable happened within their bodies. If the mere thought, the tantalizing possibility of experiencing tangibly stronger, more energetic, and more responsive legs by tomorrow morning, or at the very least noticing a discernible positive shift very soon thereafter, sparks a flicker of genuine curiosity, a surge of invigorating hope within you, then you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming next in this exploration. This journey into the science of leg strength delves into more than just the superficial desire to feel better or to simply alleviate a symptom. It's about something far more profound, deeply personal, and intrinsically valuable. It's about reclaiming a vital part of yourself, your physical autonomy, your ability to engage with the world on your own terms, your confidence in navigating your environment safely and effectively, and ultimately, the richness, vibrancy, and quality of your years ahead. It's about adding life to your years, not just years to your life. But let's be clear, this isn't just about superficial improvements, like looking a bit better in your clothes or being able to take slightly longer, more leisurely walks in the park, as pleasant and welcome as those outcomes might be. The broader implications of this type of research and the nutritional strategies it uncovers touch upon something far more profound, deeply essential, and intrinsically human. Your independence, your fundamental ability to live life on your own terms, to engage in activities you value without being limited by physical frailty. It's about your confidence in your own body's capabilities, the trust you place in its ability to support you reliably, and ultimately, it's about the overall quality, vibrancy, and richness of your years ahead. When leg strength begins to fade, it's rarely just a minor, isolated inconvenience that can be easily ignored or brushed aside. Instead, it often triggers a debilitating cascade of interconnected and often detrimental changes that can significantly impact overall well-being. Everyday activities like climbing a flight of stairs can suddenly transform from a mundane task into what feels like conquering a daunting mountain, leaving you breathless and fatigued. Your balance, once an unconscious and reliable ally, might become a bit shaky, less certain, making you hesitant, more cautious in your movements, and perhaps even instilling a pervasive underlying fear of falling, a fear that can in itself lead to a vicious cycle of reduced activity, social withdrawal, and further physical deconditioning. Consequently, your overall energy levels may dip noticeably, a persistent lethargy can set in, and it becomes all too easy, almost a default societal response, to chalk it all up to the inevitable, unyielding march of time. Sighing with resignation, well, I'm just getting older. But here's a truth bomb, a critical piece of insight, a paradigm shift that can reframe your entire perspective on aging and muscle health. Your calendar age, the simple number of birthdays you've celebrated, isn't the main nor the most powerful villain in the story of muscle decline and leg weakness. While age is undeniably a factor, an unchangeable reality, it's not an immutable sentence condemning you to frailty. The more significant and importantly, the more modifiable culprits, The factors you can influence are often a complex interplay of elements operating at a deeper biological and lifestyle level. These frequently include chronic undernourishment at a cellular level. This doesn't necessarily mean a lack of calories, but rather a deficiency or suboptimal intake of key micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, specific amino acids, essential for muscle function, repair, and energy production, or perhaps an imbalanced or poorly timed distribution of macronutrients like protein. Another major player is a persistent low-grade inflammation simmering beneath the surface of your awareness, often driven by dietary choices like excessive processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats, chronic stress, poor sleep, or lack of physical activity. And increasingly, science is highlighting the profound impact of a disruption of your body's natural internal clocks, known as circadian rhythms. These rhythms govern countless physiological processes, including the timely release of crucial hormones like cortisol, growth hormone, and melatonin, all of which have a direct or indirect impact on muscle health, metabolism, and repair cycles. In essence, the state of your leg strength, and indeed your overall muscular vitality, is often less about how many birthdays you've had and far more about your internal biology. What you eat, when you eat it, how effectively your body processes those nutrients, and how these choices interact synergistically with your intricate nervous system, the command center, and your powerful yet highly responsive muscles, the engines. This is about understanding, on a practical, actionable level, how specific foods, consumed strategically and with intention, act as potent biological signals to kickstart your muscle energy production, re-establish robust and clear communication lines between nerve and muscle, and foster an internal physiological environment that is genuinely conducive to strength, resilience, and regeneration. And we're going to explore exactly how you can harness this incredible, often untapped power, starting today, in your very own kitchen. What researchers in fields spanning from gerontology to neurophysiology are currently uncovering is nothing short of a game changer for our collective approach to age-related muscle weakness and functional decline. It turns out that a significant portion of the muscle strength and functional capacity that you think you've irretrievably lost, the power you believe has vanished forever with the passing years, isn't actually gone in the sense of the muscle tissue having completely withered away or disappeared. Instead, a considerable amount of it is merely disconnected, dormant, or offline, much like a computer that's powered down but still perfectly functional if rebooted. Imagine, if you will, a powerful high-fidelity stereo system, one capable of filling a room with rich, immersive sound. The speakers themselves, the physical units that produce the sound waves, might be in perfectly fine condition, with all their cones and coils intact, ready to perform. However, if the wires connecting those speakers to the amplifier, the device that sends the electrical signal, are frayed, loose, corroded, or damaged, the inherent potential for beautiful music is still there, locked within the speakers, but the vital electrical signal, the information needed to create sound, isn't getting through effectively, or perhaps not at all. The resilience, or at best, the distorted, weak, and unsatisfying sound. This analogy beautifully and accurately illustrates the situation with many weakened muscles in the context of aging. The muscle fibers, the speakers may still largely be present, but the neural connection, the wiring, is compromised. For decades, perhaps even for centuries, the prevailing belief within both popular culture and many established scientific circles was that muscle loss, associated with age, a condition now formally recognized and termed sarcopenia, was primarily, if not exclusively, due to a process called atrophy. Atrophy was understood as the simple, straightforward shrinking of individual muscle fibers, a seemingly unavoidable consequence resulting from disuse, a more sedentary lifestyle as people age, a natural decline in physical activity, or those seemingly inevitable hormonal declines, such as a decrease in anabolic hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, or IGF-1. While these factors certainly play a role, the rapidly advancing field of neuroscience, armed with sophisticated tools like advanced electromyography, EMG, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI that can assess muscle quality, and a deeper molecular understanding of cellular communication, is now painting a far more detailed, nuanced, and most importantly, surprisingly more hopeful picture of what truly happens to our muscles and their controlling nerves as we get older. Here's what the evolving science is telling us, with increasing clarity and conviction. Starting as early as our 40s for some individuals, and certainly becoming more prevalent with each subsequent decade, the motor neurons, those critical, specialized nerve cells that form the intricate communication lines connecting your brain where movement intention originates, and spinal cord, the main relay station, to your skeletal muscles, especially the large, powerful anti-gravity muscles in your legs, can begin to degrade, shrink, or lose their functional efficiency. This age-related degradation of the neuromuscular system is a complex process. It can involve the thinning or damage of the myelin sheath, which is the fatty insulating layer around nerve fibers that allows for rapid and efficient transmission of electrical signals. It can also manifest as a reduction in the number or sensitivity of neurotransmitter receptors, specifically acetylcholine receptors, at the neuromuscular junction, that highly specialized synaptic contact point where the nerve ending talks to the muscle fiber. In some cases, there can even be a complete withdrawal or pruning of some nerve endings from the muscle fibers they once innervated, leaving those muscle fibers effectively orphaned and without a direct command line from the nervous system. A groundbreaking study emerging from the University of Calgary, among others, provided compelling evidence for this disconnection concept. Researchers in this study, using sophisticated techniques to assess both muscle structure and neuromuscular activation, found that even in older adults who were experiencing noticeable and measurable declines in leg strength and overall physical function, the structural potential for robust muscle activity, that is, the actual protein machinery, actin, myosin, etc., within the muscle cells, was often still largely retained. The real primary issue in many of these cases wasn't the inherent quality or quantity of the muscle tissue itself having drastically diminished, but rather the integrity and efficiency of the neuromuscular signaling, the vital communication link between the nervous system and the muscle. The muscle wasn't dead or gone beyond repair. It was, in a very real and hopeful sense, just waiting to be brought back online, to be re-engaged and reawakened by a clearer, stronger, and more consistent signal from its controlling nerves. Have you ever experienced that unsettling, sometimes disconcerting sensation? You decide to stand up from a chair, a movement you've performed countless thousands of times without a second thought, and for a fleeting moment, or perhaps a bit longer, you feel a sense of wobbliness, a slight instability, a hesitation in your legs, for no apparent or obvious reason. Or perhaps you've noticed your legs tiring out much faster than they used to during activities that were once effortless, like a short walk or carrying groceries. Even if your daily routine or overall fitness level hasn't significantly changed, that's not just aging in some vague, undefined, and passive sense. That's often a clear, tangible sign of this neural communication breakdown, this subtle yet impactful disconnection between your intention to move and your muscle's ability to respond promptly and forcefully. And the truly exciting part, the powerful message of hope embedded in this new understanding, is that because it's frequently a signaling issue rather than a complete and irreversible loss of muscle tissue, there are targeted, effective, and often surprisingly simple nutritional and lifestyle strategies that can help repair, restore, and re-establish these vital neural connections. This progressive disconnect, this gradual fraying and deterioration of the neural wires, leads directly to reduced, distorted, or inconsistent electrical signaling reaching the targeted muscle fibers. In simpler, more practical terms, your muscles aren't fully or consistently receiving the contract message from your brain with the necessary strength, speed, or precision. The muscle cells themselves, as mentioned, may still be largely intact and physiologically capable of contraction, patiently waiting for instructions. But they are essentially rendered idle, underutilized, or offline because the communication pathway, the neuromuscular junction, is compromised. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to more technically as neuromuscular junction dysfunction, age-related denervation, or characterized by cycles of denervation and re-innervation that become less efficient and complete with age, leading to a net loss of functional motor units. One of the fastest, most direct, and physiologically sound ways to achieve this recharging of the neuromuscular system is to specifically and strategically fuel the neuromuscular junction, that precise, microscopic, and highly specialized point of communication, where your motor nerve endings physically meet and talk to your muscle fibers, with key nutrients that are known to restore signaling efficiency, support nerve cell health, and promote the synthesis of essential neurotransmitters. Certain amino acids, which are not only the building blocks of proteins, but also precursors for many neurotransmitters. Specific B vitamins like B1, B6, B9 folate, and B12, which are absolutely crucial for nerve impulse conduction, myelin sheath maintenance, and energy metabolism within nerve cells, and various other compounds that your body uses as raw materials to make crucial neurotransmitters. The chemical messengers themselves, like acetylcholine, can dramatically improve this nerve-muscle connection. And excitingly, as emerging research strongly suggests, these improvements can sometimes begin to manifest within a matter of hours or days of targeted nutritional intervention, rather than requiring many weeks or months, offering relatively rapid positive feedback. Your spinal cord, that incredible column of nerve tissue extending from your brain down your back, plays an absolutely crucial and central role in this entire process of movement and muscle control. It acts as a vital superhighway for nerve impulses, transmitting commands from the brain to the body, and as a complex relay station processing sensory information from the body back to the brain. The motor neurons that directly control your leg muscles largely originate or pass through the lumbar region of your spinal cord. To maintain its signal fidelity, its ability to transmit these complex patterns of electrical and chemical instructions accurately, rapidly, and consistently, the spinal cord itself and the motor neurons housed within it or extending from it rely on continuous, robust, nutrient-driven support. These neural tissues are metabolically very active and have specific nutritional requirements for their structure, function, and repair. Think of your leg muscles for a moment as a highly skilled, well-equipped, and motivated team of workers, ready and eager to perform a demanding task. And think of your nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, as the foreman, the project manager, responsible for shouting clear, precise instructions to this team through a powerful megaphone. If that megaphone's battery is dying, if the signal is weak, crackly, or distorted, the workers, your muscles, become confused, uncoordinated, inefficient, or simply don't receive the instructions clearly enough to act effectively. Consequently, their performance plummets, regardless of their inherent skill, their numbers, or their desire to work. But, and this is the crucial and empowering insight, if you can effectively recharge that megaphone's battery, if you can restore the clarity, strength, and precision of the signal, that highly capable team gets back to work, often with surprising speed, renewed vigor, and enhanced efficiency. And this is precisely where specific foods consumed with intention and understanding come into play in a truly powerful and transformative way. You're about to discover that this isn't just about feeding your muscles in a general, non-specific sense, like simply ensuring you get enough total protein or calories throughout the day. Though those are important foundational aspects, it's about a far more sophisticated, nuanced, and targeted approach. It's about actively reactivating your muscles and optimizing their function by providing the precise, essential building blocks, cofactors, and signaling molecules that your nervous system craves to regenerate, repair, protect, and re-establish clear, strong, and reliable communication pathways. So before you even begin to worry excessively about the potentially daunting task of building more muscle mass through hours of strenuous exercise, which again has its significant place, but might be secondary if the existing muscle isn't being properly activated, let's ask a more fundamental and often critically overlooked question. Is your nervous system actually optimally and efficiently using the muscle you already possess? Very often, the subjective experience of leg weakness, fatigue, or poor coordination is far more about the quality, strength, and speed of the neural signal than it is about the sheer quantity or volume of muscle tissue. Restoring that signal can unlock a surprising and deeply gratifying amount of latent strength, power, and control you thought was lost. There's a fascinating, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly important moment that occurs just seconds after you consume food, a highly orchestrated biochemical event when your body, with its incredible innate intelligence and finely tuned sensory mechanisms, begins to meticulously scan, analyze, and interpret what you've ingested. It's not just passively looking for calories to burn for immediate energy, though that's certainly part of its complex assessment. More profoundly, and with greater specificity, it's actively searching for distinct molecular cues, specific biochemical signals embedded within the nutrients you've provided that essentially tell it what to do next, whether to initiate processes of repair and regeneration, build new tissue, ramp up or downregulate energy production in certain pathway, or modulate immune responses and inflammatory cascades. It's a highly sophisticated, constantly operating internal communication system, a dialogue between your diet and your cells. Here's a more detailed glimpse into how its magic, which is really just elegant biochemistry, works at a cellular and molecular level, a vast body of research conducted over several decades and with increasing levels of precision using advanced molecular biology techniques, clearly and consistently shows that leucine directly activates a critical cellular signaling pathway known as mTOR, which is an acronym for mammalian target of rapamycin, or, more recently, mechanistic target of rapamycin. Imagine the mTOR pathway as the central control tower, the main command and control hub, or the master regulator for muscle protein synthesis, MPS. MPS, as we've established, is that all-important energy-intensive biological process of assembling amino acids into new proteins, thereby building new muscle tissue and repairing existing damaged fibers. Leucine, when present in sufficient concentrations within the muscle cell after a meal, indicating an abundance of building blocks, directly interacts with and activates key protein components of the mTOR complex, specifically mTORC1. This activation is like the finger that decisively and directly flips the on switch in that cellular control tower. Once mTOR is activated by leucine, it initiates a cascade of downstream signaling events, phosphorylating various target proteins that ultimately lead to an increase in the machinery and efficiency of protein synthesis, such as enhancing ribosome biogenesis. Ribosomes are the protein-making factories of the cell, and improving the translation of mRNAs into protein. Without an adequate leucine signal, the mTOR pathway remains relatively dormant or operates at a basal level, and consequently, muscle building is subdued or significantly less efficient. And one of the most powerful, eagerly anticipated, and physiologically significant anabolic growth-promoting signals it looks for, especially concerning the health, maintenance, and growth of muscle tissue, is an amino acid you've likely heard of in various contexts, but may not fully appreciate its pivotal and direct role in muscle metabolism: leucine. Leucine, as we've noted, is one of the 9 essential amino acids, meaning your body cannot manufacture it on its own from other precursors. You absolutely have to obtain it regularly and in sufficient quantities from the food you eat. But its importance stretches far beyond merely being a basic nutritional requirement or simply another component of dietary protein. Leucine is what scientists and researchers in muscle physiology refer to as a primary anabolic trigger, or a potent signaling amino acid. In simple functional terms, it acts as a direct, unambiguous, and powerful biochemical message to your cells, particularly your muscle cells, that it's time to shift into a state of growth, repair, and strengthening. It's akin to a bright green light for muscle building processes. A compelling and frequently cited study, published in the highly respected Journal of Nutrition back in 2011, demonstrated this principle beautifully and with direct relevance to our discussion on aging and muscle health. Researchers in this study found that a single meal high in leucine could significantly ramp up mTOR activity and robustly stimulate muscle protein synthesis, even in older adults, a population often thought to have a blunted anabolic response. This finding is incredibly important because as we age, our muscles can indeed become somewhat resistant or less sensitive to these anabolic growth signals. It's as if that on switch in the mTOR control tower gets a bit sticky, corroded, or requires a stronger, more definitive push to activate fully. Its phenomenon, as previously noted, is often termed anabolic resistance of aging. But leucine, due to its direct and potent interaction with specific regulatory proteins upstream of mTOR, like RAG, GT pulses and RATE, has the remarkable ability to help override that resistance and effectively force the switch on. In fact, it's one of the very few individual nutrients scientifically shown to possess such a powerful and direct stimulatory effect on MPS. And often, these positive effects on the muscle-building machinery can be observed within just a few hours of consuming a leucine-rich meal. This is precisely why the source of your protein, the amount of high-quality protein consumed per meal, not just per day, and the strategic timing of your protein intake are so profoundly important, especially as the years advance and the natural anabolic drive may wane. A simple, actionable, and evidence-based tool you can apply immediately to leverage this science is this. Make a conscious effort to focus your first substantial meal of the day, your breakfast or perhaps an early lunch. If you practice intermittent fasting, around a food source that is naturally rich in leucine. Animal-based proteins, as a general rule, tend to be more concentrated in leucine and have a higher overall digestibility and bioavailability of amino acids. Excellent choices include eggs, especially the whites for pure protein, though whole eggs offer a broader nutrient profile, including choline. Lean beef, poultry, chicken and turkey breast are particularly good. Fish, like salmon, tuna or cod, and particular dairy proteins such as whey protein, Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, which are renowned for their high leucine content and balanced amino acid profiles. For plant-based individuals, achieving an optimal leucine intake per meal requires a bit more planning, but is certainly achievable. Good plant-based sources of leucine include soy products, tofu, tempeh, edamame and soy protein isolate, lentils, various beans like kidney beans and chickpeas, peas, and certain seeds like pumpkin seeds. Often combining different plant protein sources within a meal can help ensure a more complete amino acid profile and a higher leucine hit. Have you ever eaten a meal that you conscientiously thought was high in protein, perhaps a large serving of meat, a couple of fish fillets, or a substantial plant-based protein dish? Yet, despite your efforts, you still felt unusually tired afterwards, or noticed a lingering weakness, a lack of pep, or a slowness to recover in your legs? The issue in such cases might not have been the overall quantity of protein you consumed in that meal, but rather the quality of that protein in terms of its specific leucine content, and crucially, the timing and concentration of that leucine intake. Many older adults, often without even realizing it, consume just enough protein spread thinly throughout the day to prevent significant net muscle breakdown, essentially to stay in a state of relative protein balance or slow loss, but not enough leucine, delivered in a sufficiently concentrated bolus at specific meal times, to actively and robustly stimulate new muscle growth and accelerate repair processes. They might be meeting basic daily protein requirements on paper, but they are consistently missing the critical anabolic trigger needed to shift the balance towards net muscle gain or optimal maintenance. You don't necessarily need massive bodybuilder-sized amounts of protein at every single meal to reap these benefits. Current research suggests that for most adults, and especially for older adults, looking to combat anabolic resistance, consuming around 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal is often enough to effectively trigger that mTOR pathway and switch on muscle repair and growth processes for a few hours. This amount of leucine can typically be obtained from a serving of approximately 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein. For instance, a 4-ounce, about 1100 Dutch cooked chicken breast, a standard scoop, around 30 grams of most whey protein powders, or about 1.5 to 2 cups of plain Greek yogurt, would generally provide this leucine threshold. And if you're looking for a highly efficient, rapidly absorbed, and convenient shortcut to ensure you're consistently hitting that leucine target, especially after exercise when the muscles are primed for nutrient uptake, or at breakfast to kickstart MPS for the day, whey protein isolate WPI stands out as one of the best options. It is highly concentrated in protein, often 90%, very rich in leucine and other essential amino acids, and its rapid digestion leads to a quick and robust spike in blood amino acid levels, providing a strong and immediate anabolic signal to the muscles. This is precisely why it's a go-to supplement for athletes aiming to optimize recovery and muscle growth, and increasingly for clinicians and nutritionists working with seniors who want to rapidly restore muscle function, combat sarcopenia, and improve overall physical resilience. But remember, and this is a crucial point to internalize, this isn't just about muscle recovery or sheer muscle growth in isolation, as if the muscle were a completely separate, independent entity within your body. It's about fostering a profound and dynamic reconnection, a restoration of synergy within your entire neuromuscular system. What's happening in your brain, your nerves, and your muscles after consuming a leucine-rich, high-quality protein meal is far more than just an increase in available building blocks for tissue repair. It's an enhancement of vital communication, a strengthening of the biochemical conversation between your nervous system, which initiates and coordinates movement, and your muscle fibers, which execute those commands. And the faster, clearer, and more robust that intricate conversation resumes and is maintained, the quicker your legs can begin to feel stable, strong, responsive, and truly alive again, ready and able to carry you through your day with renewed confidence, vigor, and joy. Every single time you decide to move, whether it's a seemingly minor action like standing up from a seated position after reading, taking a deliberate and balanced step forward, rising from the depths of a comfortable armchair, or even just subtly adjusting your posture while sitting or standing, your brain initiates an incredibly complex and exquisitely orchestrated sequence of electrical and chemical signals. But this signal, this initial intention to move that originates in the higher centers of your brain, doesn't just zap directly and instantaneously to your muscles like an electrical current flowing unimpeded through a simple passive wire. Instead, it's a far more intricate, multi-stage, and elegant physiological process. The electrical impulse, known as an action potential, travels down a specialized nerve cell called a motor neuron. When this action potential reaches the very end of that nerve fiber, the axon terminal where it makes contact with a muscle fiber, it gets translated into a chemical messenger. This vital chemical messenger, this specific neurotransmitter that bridges the gap between nerve and muscle, is called acetylcholine, often abbreviated as AH. Think of acetylcholine as the primary indispensable spark plug for your skeletal muscles. It's the principal neurotransmitter directly and solely responsible for initiating and sustaining neuromuscular transmission, that precise, exquisitely coordinated and lightning-fast process by which a thought, an intention, or a reflex originating in your brain or spinal cord becomes a tangible, observable physical movement. When the nerve impulse action potential arrives at the neuromuscular junction, the highly specialized synaptic contact point where the motor neuron's axon terminal meets the muscle fiber's membrane, also known as the motor end plate, it triggers the release of acetylcholine molecules from vesicles within the nerve terminal into the tiny synaptic cleft, the gap between the nerve and the muscle. These acetylcholine molecules then rapidly diffuse across this cleft and bind to specific protein structures on the muscle fiber membrane called nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. This binding event, in turn, causes a conformational change in these receptors, opening ion channels, primarily for sodium ions, in the muscle membrane. The influx of positively charged sodium ions causes an electrical depolarization of the muscle cell membrane, which, if it reaches a certain threshold, triggers a muscle action potential that propagates along the muscle fiber and ultimately leads to the intricate cascade of events causing muscle contraction. The interaction of actin and myosin filaments, without enough acetylcholine being released, or if its receptors on the muscle are not functioning properly, or if the acetylcholine is broken down too quickly in the synaptic cleft by the enzyme acetylcholinesterase, your muscles simply don't fire correctly or with optimal force and timing. They might misfire, respond with a noticeable delay, increased reaction time, react with less force or power than intended, fatigue more quickly, or in some cases simply fail to respond adequately to the brain's command, leading to weakness or even a temporary paralysis-like state in severe cases of neuromuscular blockade. But here's where the science offers genuinely exciting, practical, and actionable solutions, directly empowering you through nutrition. Research has demonstrated conclusively that choline, an essential nutrient, that our bodies can produce in small amounts but largely needs to obtain from diet, serves as the direct and indispensable precursor molecule your body uses to manufacture acetylcholine. Optimizing dietary choline intake can rapidly and effectively help restore and enhance this crucial signaling capacity, particularly when the demand for acetylcholine is high. A comprehensive 2012 review article published in the highly respected international journal Nutrients meticulously analyzed the existing literature and highlighted that increasing dietary choline can significantly boost acetylcholine synthesis in both the central and peripheral nervous system, with measurable positive effects on neuromuscular function, often seen in a remarkably short time frame, sometimes in less than 6 to 12 hours after ingestion. This boost in acetylcholine availability is especially pronounced and beneficial when the brain and nervous system are actively demanding motor coordination and muscle activation, such as when you're moving, exercising, learning a new motor skill, or performing tasks that require fine motor control and rapid responses. This intricate signaling process, so vital for every movement we make, becomes increasingly critical and often more vulnerable to disruption as we age. A compelling and growing body of scientific studies has shown that both the body's ability to produce and release acetylcholine effectively and the sensitivity or sheer number of its receptors on muscle cells can unfortunately decline over time. This decline can be particularly pronounced in the motor neurons that connect to the large, weight-bearing and frequently used muscles in our legs. This age-related impairment in cholinergic signaling is considered one of the key underlying physiological reasons why even small lapses in balance, a noticeable delay in muscle response when trying to correct a stumble or regain equilibrium, or a decrease in the explosive power needed for quick movements, like rising from a chair without using hands, can become more common in older adults. These subtle dysfunctions contribute significantly to an increased risk of falls, a general feeling of unsteadiness, and a decline in overall mobility and functional independence. So, what common, readily available and generally affordable food can give you this powerful neuromuscular edge by providing a rich source of highly bioavailable choline? Eggs, and particularly yolks, stand out as one of the richest, most concentrated and most bioavailable natural sources of this vital nutrient. Just 2 whole large eggs can deliver over 300 milligrams of choline, which is more than half of the recommended daily adequate intake (AI) for most adults. The AI for men is 550 mg day, and for women is 45 mg day. Your body readily absorbs the choline from egg yolks, primarily in the form of phosphatidylcholine, and efficiently converts it into acetylcholine in nerve terminals, thereby helping to restore, replenish, and enhance that vital motor control pathway. This isn't just an interesting or abstract nutritional fact, it's a functional, evidence-based protocol you can implement almost immediately to support your leg strength and coordination from a neural perspective. If you're someone who feels their legs are often slow to respond, if you've noticed occasional tremors, unsteadiness, or a lack of nimbleness, or if you've experienced a discernible decrease in power or coordination when walking, climbing stairs, or standing up from a low seat, try this simple yet potentially impactful morning ritual. Consume 2 whole eggs, poached, boiled, scrambled gently. Preserving the yolk's integrity is key for choline within about 30 minutes to an hour of waking up, ideally for an even greater synergistic effect on overall muscle health and anabolism. Pair these choline-rich eggs with another leucine-rich protein source, such as a scoop of whey protein mixed into a smoothie alongside the eggs, or a serving of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. Why specifically in the morning? There are several good reasons. Firstly, motor neurons and the entire neuromuscular system tend to be more responsive and adaptable to nutrient input early in the day, following the overnight fast. Secondly, acetylcholine synthesis can naturally be a bit lower after a night's sleep, as stores may have been used or not replenished, and replenishing choline stores promptly upon waking can help prime the pump for the day's neuromuscular activities. You're essentially giving your body the exact raw materials it needs to re-establish clear, strong neuromuscular command right when it needs it most, as you transition from a state of rest to a state of activity and engagement with your environment. Have you ever noticed how much more confident, assured, grounded, and connected your steps feel after a breakfast that purposefully includes protein and choline-rich foods like eggs? That's not just a placebo effect or a general feeling of being well-fed and satiated. It's very likely your central and peripheral nervous system firing with sharper precision, with more robust signaling thanks to optimized neurotransmitter availability and enhanced neural communication. Choline isn't just passively supporting your muscles by being a nutrient, it's actively upgrading the communication line, the very wiring and signaling fidelity between your brain, your spinal cord, and your legs. Imagine for a moment trying to nurture a beautiful, thriving, and productive garden, one filled with vibrant flowers and luscious vegetables. However, the hose that is responsible for delivering vital, life-sustaining water to the plants is kinked in multiple places, constricted or partially blocked by debris. No matter how rich and fertile the soil, no matter how perfectly balanced the nutrients within that soil, or how much abundant growth-promoting sunlight the plants receive, they simply won't flourish under such conditions. They'll struggle, they'll wilt, their growth will be stunted, and they will ultimately underperform or even perish. This is a perfect and highly illustrative analogy for what often happens inside your muscles, particularly in the large, hard-working and highly metabolically active muscles of your legs, when blood flow to them becomes restricted, sluggish, or chronically inefficient. For those who are plant-based or choose to avoid eggs for ethical, allergic, or other dietary reasons, don't worry. While egg yolks are a standout source, there are alternative plant-based sources of choline, although they may generally be less concentrated or potentially less bioavailable, requiring more careful planning to meet daily needs. Other good plant-based sources of choline include soybeans and soy products like tofu, tempeh, and fortified soy milk, shiitake mushrooms, quinoa, various nuts and seeds like almonds and sunflower seeds, and cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts and broccoli. However, it's worth noting that the bioavailability of choline, how well your body can absorb it from food and convert it into usable forms like acetylcholine, is generally considered to be highest from animal sources such as egg yolks and liver, due to the form in which choline is present, often as phosphatidylcholine. And there's an added significant bonus to optimizing your choline intake that extends beyond muscle function. Acetylcholine doesn't just activate muscles. It's also a major and indispensable player in a wide range of cognitive functions, including focus, attention, learning, memory formation and recall, and even mood regulation. So, when you boost your brain's acetylcholine levels through diet, you're often concurrently improving both your physical control and your cognitive clarity and sharpness. A fantastic and highly desirable double win for aging vibrantly, maintaining overall functional independence, and enjoying a higher quality of life. As we age, a number of physiological factors can contribute to subtle or sometimes significant changes in our vascular system, the body's intricate network of blood vessels, the arteries and capillaries, that vast branching network of conduits that diligently supply our lower limbs with life-giving oxygen-rich blood, and a constant stream of essential nutrients, can unfortunately often become narrower, stiffer, losing their youthful elasticity and compliance, and less responsive to the body's demands for increased blood flow, for example during physical activity. This phenomenon, sometimes related to the gradual development of atherosclerosis, the buildup of fatty plaques within the artery walls, which narrows the lumen or opening, or due to endothelial dysfunction, a condition where the delicate inner lining of the blood vessels, the endothelium, loses its ability to function properly, particularly in producing vasodilating substances like nitric oxide, directly impairs several critical physiological processes essential for muscle health and performance. These include: first, optimal oxygen delivery to the muscle cells. Skeletal muscles are highly dependent on a robust oxygen supply for aerobic energy production, especially during sustained activity and for recovery. Second, the efficient transport of vital nutrients like glucose for energy, amino acids for repair and synthesis, and fatty acids as an alternative fuel source from the bloodstream into the muscle cells. And third, the effective and timely removal of metabolic waste products, such as lactic acid, carbon dioxide, and other byproducts of muscle metabolism that are generated during muscle activity and can contribute to fatigue and impair function if they accumulate. These three functions, optimal oxygen supply, efficient nutrient delivery, and effective waste removal, are absolute, non-negotiable pillars of peak muscle performance, endurance, recovery, and long-term health. the unfortunate and often frustrating result of chronically compromised circulation to the legs. Limbs that feel heavy, leaden, achy, or that cramp easily. Legs that seem perpetually tired, even with adequate rest, or that are frustratingly slow to respond to exercise stimuli and even slower to recover afterwards. You might experience cold feet or a diminished pulse in your lower extremities. Poor circulation can silently and insidiously sabotage your strength, your endurance, and your recovery capacity from within, creating a significant physiological barrier that even the best dietary intentions and most dedicated exercise regimens might struggle to fully overcome if the circulatory component isn't also addressed. The key signaling molecule, the body's own natural vasodilator that masterfully regulates the dilation or widening of your blood vessels, thereby controlling blood flow and blood pressure, is a tiny but incredibly mighty gas called nitric oxide, often abbreviated in scientific literature as NO. It's a naturally produced gas, a transient signaling molecule synthesized within your endothelial cells, that delicate, single layer of specialized cells that form the crucial inner lining of all your blood vessels, from the largest arteries, like the aorta, down to the smallest, microscopic capillaries that permeate your tissues. Nitric oxide essentially acts as a powerful local messenger, telling the smooth muscle cells embedded within the walls of the blood vessels when to relax and widen, a process called vasodilation. This widening of the blood vessel lumen allows more blood to flow through with less resistance, increasing the delivery of oxygen and vital nutrients to the working tissues, including your hungry leg muscles. What's truly fascinating and highly relevant to our kitchen-based food as medicine approach is that nitric oxide production in the body is highly dependent on and can be significantly boosted by what you eat, and one of the most potent natural and readily available dietary boosters of this incredible life-enhancing molecule is found in a humble, unassuming, and often vibrantly colored root vegetable, beets, also commonly known as beetroot. Beets, especially when consumed raw, e.g., grated into salads, lightly cooked, steamed or roasted to preserve their delicate nutrients, or, most notably for a concentrated dose, juiced, are absolutely packed with naturally occurring compounds called dietary nitrates. No. 3. Your body, with remarkable biochemical cleverness, possesses an elegant pathway to convert these ingested dietary nitrates, first into nitrites, No. 2 primarily by the action of beneficial bacteria residing on the surface of your tongue, and then, once these nitrites are swallowed and reach the acidic environment of the stomach, or absorbed into the bloodstream, they can be further reduced into active nitric oxide NO in various tissues, including the endothelium. A compelling and frequently cited 2015 study published in the esteemed Journal of Applied Physiology investigated the effects of beetroot juice consumption on muscle function in older adults. The researchers discovered that these older adults, after consuming concentrated beetroot juice, experienced a significant and measurable improvement in their leg muscle power and endurance, often within just a few hours of intake. This beneficial effect was particularly noticeable in the fast-twitch muscle fibers, those muscle fibers responsible for quick, explosive, powerful movements like standing up quickly from a chair, accelerating during a walk, or crucially, reacting rapidly to catch oneself from a stumble and prevent a fall. These fast-twitch fibers are absolutely essential for maintaining balance, agility, and functional independence, and they are often disproportionately affected by aging and inactivity. This wasn't some marginal, barely detectable gain that required sophisticated laboratory equipment to discern. The improvements were clearly measurable in real-world functional movement tests that are highly relevant to daily life, such as improvements in walking speed and increased number of repetitions in chair stand tests, a common measure of lower body strength and endurance, and even enhanced stair climbing ability. Participants in such studies often report subjectively feeling less fatigued and more capable during physical tasks after beetroot juice consumption. Here's a simple, effective, and science-backed tool you can use to harness this circulatory benefit for your legs. Try drinking about 250 to 300 milliliters, which is around 8 to 10 fluid ounces, of beetroot juice, preferably freshly made or a good quality, not from concentrate store-bought version, without added sugars. Or eating 1 to 2 medium-sized cooked or raw beets. approximately 90 minutes to 2 hours before any planned physical activity, or simply at a time of day when you want your legs to feel their best and most energized. This timing allows the dietary nitrates sufficient opportunity to be converted into nitric oxide in your system and begin exerting their vasodilatory effects, effectively opening up those crucial blood pathways to your hard-working muscles. Want to take it even further and potentially amplify the nitric oxide boosting effect? Consider combining this beetroot intake with about 20 to 30 minutes of light to moderate aerobic or dynamic movement. A brisk walk, some gentle cycling on a stationary bike, a session of dynamic stretching, or even some light bodyweight exercises. Movement itself, particularly aerobic activity, naturally stimulates nitric oxide production by increasing what's known as shear stress, the frictional force of blood flowing on the endothelial lining of blood vessels, which signals the endothelial cells to produce more NO. When your body is already loaded with the precursor dietary nitrates from the beets, this combination of nutritional priming and physical stimulus can be particularly potent. Think of it as priming the hose with ample raw material, the beets providing the nitrates for NO production, and then simultaneously turning up the water pressure, the movement stimulating NO release from the endothelium, leading to a greater overall flow and perfusion of your muscles. You may not always feel it as a sharp, immediate, or clearly localized pain, but it's often there, an unwelcome guest, like a low, steady, almost imperceptible hum or a persistent background noise within your body's intricate systems. This is the insidious and pervasive nature of chronic inflammation. Unlike the acute, obvious, and usually short-lived inflammation that occurs swiftly and visibly after an injury, think of a sprained ankle that swells up dramatically, turns red, feels hot to the touch, and is undeniably painful. All clear signs of the body's immediate defense and repair mechanisms at work. Chronic inflammation is far more subtle, often invisible to the naked eye, systemic, affecting the whole body or multiple organ systems rather than just one localized area, and unfortunately incredibly pervasive in modern westernized societies. It can persist for months or even years, often without overt, easily recognizable symptoms, slowly but surely taking its toll. Over time, this simmering, low-grade fire, this persistent state of low-level immune system activation and dysregulation, gradually erodes muscle function, impairs recovery processes, accelerates cellular aging, and contributes to a wide range of age-related chronic diseases. And your legs, with their large muscle mass, high metabolic demands, and constant work against gravity, are particularly vulnerable to its detrimental weakening effects. Some people might express concern about the natural sugar content in beets or beetroot juice. While beets do contain natural sugars, primarily sucrose, their glycemic load, a more accurate measure than glycemic index of how much a food is likely to raise blood sugar levels in a typical serving, is relatively low, especially when consumed as whole beets, due to their significant fiber content, which slows sugar absorption. For most individuals, particularly when the beetroot is consumed before or around physical activity, when muscles are readily taking up glucose from the bloodstream for fuel, the substantial performance, circulatory, and recovery benefits derived from enhanced nitric oxide production far outweigh any minor concerns about the natural sugar content. You can also easily buffer any potential blood sugar impact by pairing the beets or juice with a source of protein, like some nuts, seeds, or a protein shake, or some fiber-rich greens, which will further slow down glucose absorption. Understanding and strategically leveraging the power of nitric oxide through readily available and affordable foods like beets is a genuine game-changer for delivering vital energy, oxygen, and nutrients directly to where your legs need them most, helping them feel lighter, stronger, more responsive, and more resilient. So what's actually happening inside your body at a cellular and molecular level when this chronic low-grade inflammation takes hold and begins to insidiously impact your muscles? Essentially, a chronically inflamed internal environment creates a biochemically hostile milieu for optimal muscle health and function. Chronic inflammation directly interferes with muscle protein synthesis, the crucial building process, often by disrupting the anabolic signaling pathways like the mTOR pathway we discussed earlier, which can be inhibited by inflammatory cytokines that promote growth and repair. Simultaneously, it can upregulate or activate pathways that lead to increased muscle protein breakdown, catabolism, tipping the balance towards net muscle loss. It significantly increases oxidative stress within muscle cells. An overproduction of damaging free radicals, reactive oxygen species, that can harm vital muscle cell structures, including DNA, proteins like contractile proteins actin and myosin, and lipids in cell membranes. This oxidative stress in turn can directly impair mitochondrial function. Remember, mitochondria are those vital cellular engines that power your muscle contractions and recovery. Damaged or edephenoid mitochondria produce less energy, ATP, and paradoxically can generate even more harmful free radicals, further fueling the vicious cycle of inflammation, oxidative stress, and muscle decline. Furthermore, chronic inflammation can negatively affect your nervous system's ability to efficiently recruit muscle fibers during movement. The inflammatory mediators can impair nerve conduction velocity and disrupt the function of the neuromuscular junction, meaning that even if the muscle tissue is technically still there and capable, the signal from the nerves to activate it becomes weaker, less coordinated, and less effective. This leads to a functional weakness that might be greater than the actual loss of muscle mass would suggest, contributing to feelings of fatigue and poor performance. Here's what the cutting-edge research emerging from fields like gerontology, immunology, and muscle physiology is revealing with increasing and alarming clarity. Even seemingly low levels of chronic inflammation, often only detectable through specific ancient blood markers like hCRP, IL-6, TNF-alpha, can lead to a noticeable and progressive decline in muscle strength, dynapenia, muscle power, endurance, coordination, and critically, your body's innate capacity for muscle regeneration and repair following stress or injury. A significant and large-scale longitudinal study, the findings of which were published in the esteemed journals of gerontology, medical sciences in 2020, meticulously tracked a large cohort of older adults over several years, monitoring their inflammatory markers and muscle health parameters. The researchers found a strong, consistent, and independent link. Consistently elevated levels of key inflammatory markers in the blood, particularly C-reactive protein, CRP, a general marker of systemic inflammation produced by the liver in response to inflammatory signals, and interleukin-6, IL-6, a potent pro-inflammatory cytokine or signaling molecule released by immune cells and other tissues, was strongly and directly associated with reduced muscle mass, sarcopenia, diminished muscle strength, and poorer overall physical performance, e.g., slower gait speed, difficulty with chair stance in these older adults. This crucial association held true even when the researchers statistically controlled for and accounted for their participants' self-reported physical activity levels and general nutritional intake, highlighting chronic inflammation as a distinct, powerful, and independent negative influence on muscle health in aging. Now, here's the surprising, uplifting, and genuinely empowering part of this otherwise concerning story. One of the most potent, accessible, affordable, and sustainable tools we possess for actively reducing this chronic smoldering fire, for calming this internal inflammatory storm and restoring a more balanced immune state, isn't typically found in the expensive supplement aisle of a health food store. Though some supplements can play a supportive role, or in a prescription medication, though anti-inflammatory drugs are crucial for certain acute or severe inflammatory conditions, they are not a long-term solution for low-grade chronic inflammation due to potential side effects. It's readily available, often year-round, affordable for most, and patiently waiting for you in the produce drawer of your refrigerator or at your local farmer's market or grocery store. We're talking about the incredible, often underappreciated nutritional power of dark leafy greens. Think of vibrant deep green spinach, robust and slightly bitter kale, peppery arugula, earthy Swiss chard, and nutrient-packed mustard greens or collard greens. These aren't just vaguely nutrient-dense vegetables that are good for you in some general sense. They are, in fact, bona fide anti-inflammatory powerhouses, packed to the brim with a veritable symphony of bioactive compounds that work synergistically to quell inflammation. They are loaded with high levels of various potent polyphenols, a diverse group of plant compounds with well-documented antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects, abundant chlorophyll, the green pigment responsible for photosynthesis, which also has demonstrated antioxidant and potential anti-inflammatory properties in humans. Essential minerals like magnesium, which itself plays a crucial role in regulating inflammatory responses, and deficiency is linked to increased inflammation. In some cases like spinach and arugula, beneficial nitrate compounds, as we discussed with beets, which can improve circulation and indirectly reduce inflammatory stress by enhancing oxygen delivery and endothelial function. All of these diverse components, working in concert, actively support your body's natural, innate ability to downregulate pro-inflammatory pathways and restore a healthier, less reactive and more balanced immune state. In particular, a specific type of polyphenol, a flavonoid called quercetin, which is found abundantly in foods like kale, onions, apples, and mustard greens, has been scientifically shown in numerous in vitro animal and human studies to directly inhibit the production and release of key inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha. These cytokines are major drivers and amplifiers of the chronic inflammatory process. A comprehensive review study, highlighted in the esteemed journal Frontiers in Pharmacology in 2019, meticulously analyzed the existing research and reported that regular and sufficient intake of quercetin-rich foods, or in some cases quercetin supplementation, can lead to a measurable reduction in systemic inflammation markers, like CRP and IL-6 within just a few weeks, often between 2 to 4 weeks of consistent consumption. This beneficial anti-inflammatory effect is often especially pronounced and synergistic when this dietary strategy is combined with moderate regular physical exercise, which also has its own independent and powerful anti-inflammatory effects. A simple, science-backed and highly practical protocol to implement this powerful anti-inflammatory strategy is to make a conscious and consistent effort to include at least one packed cup, or a very generous handful, as they cook down significantly, of assorted dark leafy greens with your first main meal of the day. Why specifically the first meal, such as breakfast, e.g. spinach in an omelette or smoothie, or an early lunch, e.g. a large salad base of mixed greens? Because emerging research in the fascinating field of chrononutrition, the study of how the timing of food intake interacts with our internal biological clocks, suggests that front-loading your day with anti-inflammatory and nutrient-dense foods can help to set a positive and beneficial tone for inflammatory regulation, metabolic health, across your entire circadian rhythm. Our internal 24-hour clock governs a vast array of physiological processes, including immune responses, hormone secretion, like cortisol, which has anti-inflammatory roles, and energy metabolism, and providing these beneficial compounds early may help optimize these rhythms. For an added synergistic boost to both flavor and nutrient absorption, try combining these greens with a source of healthy fat, like a drizzle of high-quality extra virgin olive oil, some avocado slices, or a sprinkle of nuts and seeds, like walnuts or flax seeds. Healthy fats significantly enhance the absorption of fat-soluble antioxidants found abundantly in greens, such as vitamin K, which itself has anti-inflammatory properties and is crucial for bone health, and beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A, important for immune function and vision. A squeeze of fresh lemon juice or a splash of raw, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar over your greens can also aid digestion by stimulating stomach acid and enzyme production, and further improve nutrient uptake. When it comes to the crucial and often intertwined goals of regaining lost leg strength and maintaining robust muscular health throughout life, what you choose to eat, the specific nutrients and foods you consume, is undeniably fundamentally crucial, as we've been exploring in considerable detail throughout this guide. However, it's becoming increasingly clear from a wealth of scientific research that the specific nutrients and foods you consume represent only one half, albeit a very important half, of the intricate, powerful and dynamic story of muscle health and adaptation. Specifically the timing and distribution of your nutrient intake, particularly protein, throughout the day, may be just as profoundly important, if not more so, in certain contexts, like post-exercise or in older adults, especially as we navigate the physiological changes, challenges and opportunities that can come with advancing age. You see, every single time you consume a meal or even a substantial snack that contains a sufficient amount and quality of protein, particularly protein rich in essential amino acids like the critical trigger leucine, you initiate or trigger a vital and complex biological process within your muscle cells known as muscle protein synthesis, or MPS. This, as we've touched upon multiple times, is the fundamental and energy-requiring molecular mechanism by which your body diligently repairs existing muscle tissue that may have been stressed, strained, or slightly damaged from daily activities, normal wear and tear, or more significantly, from structured exercise. And crucially, MPS is also the process by which your body builds new, stronger, more resilient, and more functional muscle fibers, leading to increases in muscle mass, hypertrophy, and strength over time, given the right stimuli. MPS is essentially your body's internal, molecular command sequence saying, let's grow, let's repair, let's adapt, let's get stronger. It's the absolute cornerstone of muscle adaptation, regeneration, and hypertrophy. It's important to approach this dietary strategy with realistic expectations and patience. These whole foods don't work like fast-acting anti-inflammatory drugs or painkillers. You won't necessarily feel a dramatic overnight transformation in how your legs or your whole body feels. However, over time, often in as little as 10 to 14 days of consistent dedicated daily intake, many people begin to notice subtle yet significant and cumulative positive changes: less morning stiffness and achiness, reduced muscle soreness after physical activity, faster recovery times between exercise sessions, more stable and sustained energy levels throughout the day, as inflammation can contribute to fatigue, and a renewed, resilient, and lighter feeling of strength and well-being in their legs and entire body. This is where nutrition truly transcends its role as mere fuel for energy and becomes a powerful, intelligent, and sophisticated regulatory signal, effectively telling your immune system, we're safe, we're well-nourished, you can power down the excessive, non-productive, and ultimately damaging chronic inflammation. It's about consciously creating an internal physiological environment where your muscles can truly thrive, repair efficiently, and strengthen optimally, free from the constant drag of underlying inflammation.